Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome. So, I just want to take a few minutes to check in with everyone with the openings of clubs and programs. I hope you all are taking precautions. Don't go too fast. I know it's been a long time since we've been locked up, but please do follow the guidelines because we definitely don't want the numbers to keep going up, and then we're going to see that lockdown coming back in, and we're going to have to start a whole process all over again. So, and welcome to my webinar. It is usually on Saturday, but with the weather being so nice, I thought we'll just do it on Sunday. It's just hard to keep people at home on Saturday. If you have been following my weekly webinars, you would know that I was inviting a lot of athletes with the elite mindset, just sharing their tennis journey, the pressures they felt, how they overcome them, the resiliency overcoming lost streaks, losing streaks or injuries or a change of programs or change of coaches and parents pressure. It's always good to hear from different perspectives. We even had a parent coach, Leda Fernandez's dad coach, came on and spoke at length on his values and beliefs, how he raised his two daughters to be world-class tennis players. And today, we have a completely different perspective, and it's coming from the collegiate mindset of an athlete. With the pandemic, for sure, it has turned everyone's lives upside down, inside out, and sideways. However, tennis speaking wise, we don't know how it's going to come back, when it's going to come back, but this is how I foresee tennis coming back, is that it's going to have to be done locally. It's too expensive. It was expensive flying all over the place, trying to get the UTR points. Now it's that is going to skyrocket, that traveling. And not to mention that you go to a place, they're going to quarantine for 14 days. Who's going to do that? So local, with the programs, with leagues and matches and whatever, that's going to come in the local play. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be associating that, partner that with UTR to make that worthwhile. And another thing which I'm foresee would benefit is when you're 17 or 18, that's the time when you have to decide, in the past anyways, are you going to go pro or are you going to go to collegiate tennis? With the way things are, most 99% of the players are going to choose college. There's going to be such a bottleneck that is going to require everyone to step up on the game. How are you going to do that? Well, yeah, it is through the UTR. So, again, that's going to go back to matches locally, try to play as many as soon as things open up. And because of the bottleneck, and because, college tennis is going to be a huge demand, that is where I'd invited two amazing college players. One is a 2020 graduate from Ohio State University, and the other one is going into his third year at George Washington. Before we welcome our two guests, please, I'm making this interactive because ultimately why I hold the webinar is for you, players, coaches, parents. Please be proactive because this is your chance to ask all those questions which a lot of parents and players would want to know before you get into college. Things are quite different. It's nerve-wracking for parents with first child going to college. After that is easy cheesy. But don't be shy with your questions. I'm going to open up the Q&A where you can have put in your questions. If you if you had missed my previous webinars, the recordings are available on my website, patricia@patriciahe.com. That will be my email. And my website is patriciahe.com, and that is HY, not HE. So, so without delay, I'm going to bring in our two guests. Well, hello, Danielle and Ryan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for taking the Sunday afternoon, spending time with us.
Of course.
Yeah, no problem. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have our audience here. I'm going to open up the Q&A for them. Just so, you know, like I said earlier, I've received a ton of questions for you both. And we're going to start with Danielle. Danielle, could you please, I know you're the 2020 graduate, could you please just give us a summary of your college resume?
Oh, well, I started off at Indiana. I played 1 year there. Wasn't the match for me. I had always kind of had Ohio State in the back of my head. That was always kind of where I wanted to go. It didn't work out the first time, but the second time I kind of knew I was going to transfer as soon as the season ended. Ohio State was one of the first schools that came to my mind. Adam, our assistant coach, actually watched me play Ohio State, played Miho when they played at Indiana, and kind of saw my game and how I developed a little bit that first year. And they contacted me as soon as my release was sent out, which now is a little bit different with the portal and stuff. But they contacted me and I was super interested, and obviously would do anything to go there. But it was a little bit more complicated because I had to get stuff passed by the NCAA and the Big Ten because it was within the conference. So I actually got that passed. I committed before I even knew that. So I would have lost a year of eligibility if that didn't get passed. I kind of took a leap of faith. It worked out. I went there and trained with Ty the whole summer before, Ty and Justin, and they really helped me. I actually had a wrist injury that whole summer. I didn't really hit any backhands. Redshirted that first year, which was actually the perfect timing for an injury if there was any time that actually is good to have an injury. But our team was like one in the country with, 2 or 3 people, blue chips on the bench. So it was like crazy stacked lineup. So I joined the team. They were like, work for a scholarship. We think you can get it. We think you can do that. I ended up doing that for the rest of my time at Ohio State, getting a scholarship for those 3 years. I left Indiana with one and left to go to a school without one, which is kind of scary, but I believed in it and it worked out for me. So I played for Ohio State, loved it. And really improved over the years, developed, which is what my number one thing was going into college, which is kind of the reason I wasn't fitting at Indiana. I really wanted to get the most out of my game because I played so many other sports leading up to college. So I went to Ohio State and loved it. And we ended up doing really, really well this year.
Now you also got the Senior Most Improved Award, no?
I did.
Yeah, you're little. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it was obviously super important to me. I put in a lot of work, my redshirt year, going in early, late, because I wasn't playing matches, really putting in that extra effort, going to some of the guys' practices with Ty, trying to get in as much as I could. Really just using all my resources. I was just had a goal in mind, and I really wanted to reach that and try to get the most out of myself. And I think I did that. So that was pretty
congratulations.
Cool.
That's just an honor for that.
Thanks.
All right, Ryan, Mr. Navarro.
All right. So I'm a rising junior at George Washington University. I'll probably be referring to it as GW or GW. So don't get confused if I say that. But so I've finished 2 years now. So my first year was a pretty good year. I finished. I played mainly at the 1 and 2 spots. And then I finished with that. I was named to the first team all conference at my conference. And then the second year was a bit of a different year for everyone. So this past year, in season play, it was kind of cut short, and I was actually had a bit of a thumb injury just before everything was was cut off. So didn't play too many matches in the spring season, which is the dual match season. But it was a good year overall, and I played again at the 1 and 2 spots for the most.
You also got something, Ryan, about academic. Are you still there?
Yeah, so I was named to like the ITA all academic team and also to the conference all academic team. So academics have always been kind of a big focus for me. So I've tried to keep my grades up as well as excel in tennis. So yeah, I don't have as many matches under my belt as Danielle, but yeah, no, hopefully working towards it in the next couple of years.
Okay. So I think there's a little bit
Is
of a
my
lag there, yeah? But that's
a little bit
okay.
of delay? Okay.
Yeah, but that's okay. So you know what I the takeaway is that you're not just a pretty face. You got the tennis and you got you got the academics going. Okay, so Ryan, going into college, you won two nationals, doubles nationals in Canada. You were a hugely successful competitor. Was How did you come to choose? I mean, George Washington is an amazing school. I'm not saying it, but how did you decide that?
Yeah, so I mean, I started out kind of like the college process, probably in when like you talk to kind of most coaches in the beginning of grade 11, and so I just kind of started out sending out emails to different coaches and just kind of looking at many different universities, and right away I kind of knew I wanted to be in a bit of a city and didn't want to be kind of in like a campus in the middle of nowhere, which there's a lot of amazing schools that are, but I kind of wanted to be in the city. And so right away when I kind of stumbled upon GW and was looking at the school, it kind of checked quite a few of those boxes right from the start, and it's a strong academic school. So sent out an email and just kind of stayed in contact with the coach who has since moved on, but developed kind of a good rapport with him but at the same time was talking to other schools. That's the one thing that when you are going through this recruiting process, you don't want to kind of limit your options as much as possible. You want to be talking to as many schools as possible to see what's out there, because there's so many schools, especially in the United States, and that might be a great fit. So yeah, I was still talking to other schools, and then I was fortunate that there was also a pretty good connection. I knew some coaches who were good friends with the head coach there. So there was already a good connection there. And then when I visited the school, I kind of fell in love with it. I love the setting. We're a couple blocks from the White House, which is maybe not the best place to be right now in terms of safety and the protests, but I'm back here right now. But yeah, I love the setting, and I loved how there's always stuff to do. And then, yeah, the tennis team just seemed like a good fit. It seemed like I knew I'd be coming in and playing a pretty big role on the team right from the start, because there was quite a few seniors graduating that year. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to be involved with the team right from the start. I didn't want to be sitting on the sidelines, which is obviously, it's hugely important to obviously support teammates. And I actually got a good taste of that when I was being out with my thumb injury this season. So it's a different perspective, but, I was glad I could come in and kind of contribute right away. So just overall, it was just a good fit.
Well, that's an awesome school to be
yeah.
at, right?
Yeah.
Danielle, so you mentioned earlier, you after the first year, you changed school. So looking back, right, what was the key point in determining, like, yeah, you know what, you wish you had seen it before, or did it just happen when you were there?
It actually, I think looking back, I wouldn't change it, because I don't know if I would be put in the position I was at Ohio State if I didn't have that first year at Indiana, because obviously match play is huge, and I got that whole year. I wouldn't have gotten that if I initially went to Ohio State, because of that team that was Francesca, Miho, Fernie, Sandy, Gabby, everyone, like Olivia, Anna, I mean, like insanely good team. I wouldn't have played. So that might have taken me a different route, like sitting on the bench maybe for those years that I didn't play. But Indiana, I obviously went there wanting to go to Ohio State, like I said first, didn't work out. I loved the school. I had a lot of friends, loved the school. It was awesome, but I don't think my goals aligned with the Indiana team. The team chemistry wasn't really great. I was looking for more of like a positive environment, like uplifting, and I wanted to be pushed a lot more. It was in the weight room. It was great. I loved that. That was like my sanctuary, but
The gym rat.
Yeah. Team-wise, it was like a little mismatch for me. And then I really wanted to be pushed more and take myself to the next level. And I didn't really see myself doing that there. And I really wanted to compete at the higher level with the big tournaments, going to the NCAA tournament and playing in that, and playing the All-American tournament. That was always one of my big goals. And I would be able to do that at Ohio State and Indiana wasn't really putting themselves in the position to even send players to some of that stuff. So
now to our audience here is a mix of parents and players. A few are in college, but for those who are looking to go to college, what does All-American mean? Can you explain a little bit of that?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, it's just like whenever you think of All-American, it's like the best players in college. I feel like that was always one of my brother's biggest goals, one of my boyfriend's biggest goals. Mine, obviously, it didn't happen, but I'm pretty confident that I could have said that I would have if this year ended, based on how I was doing. So I'll give myself a little bit of like pretend. But just like you really go to college and like I feel like all the top players, like All-American. My dad coached some guys that played at Ohio State, and that was always one of their goals. And I think it's just a super cool thing, and like it's a really big deal. So I don't know, it's just like the best players come into college, and like that's, I feel like, a goal that everyone really looks up to. And every day at practice I was very motivated by that, looking up on the wall and just seeing all the players before me that did it, and kind of just like that, use that as a motivating factor. But
yeah, I can definitely understand for Americans, All-American are like, wow, it's the accomplishment, right? What about for you, Ryan? Even though Canada is like literally neighbors in the US and we're considered international, right? What does that mean to you?
I mean, All-American. I mean, I think especially once you get to college, you kind of quickly realize how kind of amazing to be All-American would be. But there isn't that kind of same, it's growing, I think, in Canada a lot, the kind of the culture and the desire to kind of go to the States more and to pursue like a Division I tennis experience. But it doesn't, I don't think it carries like the same meaning as maybe all kind of American students would have, and doesn't have that. But when you get to college, it quickly does, and people talk about it, and that's kind of obviously the ultimate goal. It's kind of the ultimate level you can achieve in college athletics. So now before, I mean, I knew what it was, but it didn't have that same meaning as it does when you actually do get to university and you're kind of submersed in it.
Well, I totally agree with you, Ryan. For international players, when I went to UCLA going in, I lived in Hong Kong. So it's like, hey, I'm like, hey, congratulations, you go on American. And I was like, oh, great. Okay. But now, of course, I'm more involved. I'm like, oh, it's a big deal it's a big deal, so yeah, I totally get it, how the culturally, when you're not educated, and that is right on cue why you're both here, because obviously we have an international, Ryan, and then we have a national, local, Danielle. Okay, I'm going to pull one of the questions from an international player, from Maya. So for international students, they need a student visa called the I-20 to enter legally to school. The question is, I still haven't gotten anything regarding how long does the immigration process take?
So that's for a couple of years since I've actually kind of gone through like that initial I-20. I'm not really sure how long the actual process does take, but you should have it at least. You should be kind of worrying about that, hopefully, in the days before you're heading out to university. But obviously the process is probably going to be changed a little bit with the border being closed right now, and kind of the current international situation. So almost, I think every school has a kind of an international student services office. So just maybe continually just reach out to them and just kind of make sure you're informed on the process. And most of the time they'll get back to you pretty quickly. I know at my school, they even have different webinars that you can be attending just to kind of get information on not only like the current situation, but being like a prospective student. Just information, and they'll be able to inform you with everything in terms of that, just because it probably does vary by school, and there's probably little nitty gritty stuff with the process, but yeah, just kind of get ahead of it quickly, because it's the last thing you want to be stressed out about in the days before
Well, yeah, absolutely.
you're going to school.
When it comes to immigration and going to they don't joke around. I mean,
No.
You do want all your paperwork in order. All right, Danielle, there's a question about time management. So if you could bring to the audience, share with them what 1 week, let's do the 2 semesters. Let's do, because they flip-flop, right? So let's do the first semester during, the fall. When you go, give a 1 week example of what that may look like.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
It was super different. But so the fall, depending on, we switched with the boys morning and afternoon practices. I feel like a lot of people liked the morning to get it out of the way and like not have to worry about everything. You could eat before the practices and not have to worry from rushing to class. But so basically a lot of it was captain's practice run. Like, so my last 2 years, I kind of ran a lot of the practices because coaches are limited on hours. So for a morning semester, we would go get there like at 8, warm up, be ready by 8:15 or 8:30, do practice until 11, and then we go lift. Like that was almost every day. And then I don't know, the hours weeks always change. It's super confusing. But so the coaches would be able to hit with us for 4 hours, and then we could do 4 hours of like training with our coach Kobe, which is our strength and conditioning coach. So we do like 45 minutes. But it changed also from when I was in college. So sometimes it was like 2 hours with the coaches and 6 hours. So it really did change. But then we do some conditioning, obviously, and then after that, you'd get a snack, or they might give you lunch that day, and everyone would pile into a car, run to class, find a parking spot somehow, get to class. Somehow after that, try to get a ride. I had a car, luckily, get to the training room, fix all of your injuries or something, figure that out. And either for me, go to the grocery store, or people would go to the dorm food halls, whatever. I was never in the dorm at Ohio State, and then that was the day. And then it was basically the same sort of thing. Obviously you do different things in practice or different things in the weight room. You do conditioning one day or then a lift another day. But so in the afternoon, it was kind of flipped. Classes in the morning, which I never really liked. I always liked to be 100% in the mindset of practicing, go to practice, do it, not have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I have to rush out of class. I always like being like super early, as Isabel would know. I always made her get in my car. Like we'd get there at least a half hour early. 45 minutes would be ideal. But yeah, so it was harder to do that with classes before. But also in some periods, you'd get individual time with the coaches. They'd be able to hit with you. So then you throw that in there. And then in the spring, it is a lot different. At the beginning, you can kind of push a little bit more. We had individuals throughout the whole season, though, which I love. You really get to work with the coaches and work on things you want to do. Not that like team practices, you can't do that, but it was more individualized. And you kind of said like, hey, I need work on my serve or return or backhand volley, whatever. So this year we had afternoon practices. So I'd go in at like 9 for an individual, hit for an hour with the coaches, leave, go to class or whatever, and then pick my car group up, which is Isabel and Shiori for the most part, and go to practice. We'd get there at like 1. It started at 1:30. You do our bands and everything, play till 4-ish, 3:54, and then try to run over to strength and conditioning. And some of the days we'd get meals delivered and we'd all spend time eating there, or you could grab a snack or get treatment after. And then during matches, kind of just based on the match time, it would kind of differ. We didn't have a ton of home matches this year because we had half the season and we played away a lot because we weren't ranked as high initially. So we had to go for some of the big tournaments, which actually worked out really well. But so yeah, it's very hectic, but I loved it. I wouldn't want it any other way. I like to go, go, go. So there wasn't much sitting around, but yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know if there's any specific questions that I didn't cover.
Well, Danielle, it's like, it was incredible because when the year started, when the season started, OSU women's tennis team was ranked 25.
Yeah.
Right. And then they ended up two.
Yeah.
That's just incredible comeback.
Yeah.
It's a major, a lot of hard work going in, individual and as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, how did you adjust? Because with the coaching, because that's the biggest part, right? You were in this program for the longest time, I think, since you could walk.
Yeah.
Right. And then going into a different setup where the coaching obviously is different. How have you adjusted to the coaching part?
Yeah, so I was almost a bit of a unique situation with that as well, because the coach that recruited me thought I was coming into the program that I thought I was going into actually resigned just before everyone got here. So it was a bit of a change right from the beginning, because it's a coach that I thought was I was going to have didn't. So we had an assistant coach for a couple months before a new head coach came in. So that was a bit of an adjustment in itself. And right away, I think the biggest thing is that during a lot of practices is a much bigger team focus, I would say, where a lot of the times, or like when you have your big team practices, you're not necessarily focusing like on yourself individually. Sometimes you're doing things that might benefit others on the team, just because at the end of the day, college tennis is a team sport. But then there are individuals where you'll work with a coach or assistant coach, and that's when you kind of work on your own things. And then so when our now head coach did come in, he came in, I would say, end of October. It was great because now we had obviously more coaches, but injected kind of new life into it. And yeah, no, we've loved it. We don't have a huge team, about 8 or 9 guys over the past 2 years. So I've loved kind of the energy that that college practices bring. One of the things that most college coaches kind of preach is bringing energy to all practices and always keeping it high, being more vocal. And that, because that kind of carries over into matches when you are playing, because kind of supporting your teammates is so important in college tennis, which you don't really get that much in junior tennis. You're very much, it's very much individual, unless you're playing doubles, of course. But so that kind of energy and that kind of team spirit is definitely a big change, but it's pretty contagious once you kind of get used to it. And I find myself now when I'm training back at the ORC, there's times like I'll look over it and I'll say like, oh, good shot, and great point. And it's just like stuff I didn't really do that much as a junior, but it's just kind of a habit because we're encouraged or forced to in practices. So that's kind of been a bit of a change, but I've loved it, and definitely keeps the energy up, especially when you're tired, because you're going to be tired a lot in college, especially.
Right. Because there's the thing, school tutoring, the first year, right? You have to attend so many hours of tutoring after, at the end of the day. And that could definitely creep up into the night. And not to mention, of course, first time students away from home, out of the cage. Not you, Ryan. I mean, I know it's not you, not Danielle, right? But, time can definitely flies on by. And then before you know it, is like, wait, I'm already done with the first year type of thing. And as Danielle, you know very well, because you just graduated already.
It went by so fast.
Yeah, just like tears for us, because you were, all right, moving on to another question. What is the most challenging obstacle you've had to face in college itself or on the college tennis?
Me?
Yeah. Sure. So we'll go with you, Danielle, and then Ryan.
Give me some time to think about this. That's good. Put Danielle first.
Well, so I went to a private school for my whole life, literally since the day I started school. So I was very prepared for the academic part of it. I really didn't struggle at all. College was actually much easier for me than actual high school and like stuff like that. So I was really prepared in that sense. And I really did want to kind of change the role and have tennis be my main focus, which I did do and I was able to do because of my background in school. So school really didn't challenge me that much. I think the most challenging obstacle, I think injuries is very, very difficult because sometimes you cannot control them. And it is very frustrating, especially when you're someone who wants to just go, go, go. I've had a lot of wrist injuries. It's been a big issue. My brother had two. I had TFCC tears and ECU tears, and I've kind of had to deal with that my whole college career and tape my wrist and just have that pain and kind of just play through it and kind of zip it and kind of deal with that. And then my shins, I've had shin stuff just because of like overuse. So I think just injuries for the most part. But I mean, a lot of colleges have a lot of resources so that you can get a lot of help when you are struggling. So I think that's really good, especially now. So many programs are just looking to do anything possible, give you anything available to them, to you, to be able to use. So obviously, like, relationships are tough. You're not going to throw a bunch of people on a team and they're not going to love each other. So kind of just like everyone learning to respect each other and kind of build each other up. I think that's very tough for anyone. Just kind of like dealing with that atmosphere and kind of learning how to go with the flow or go with it. I think that is probably even bigger than injuries for me.
Yeah, it is confusing and sometimes frustrating, in the environment where everyone wants to do so well, but the stress of the school, the stress of, who knows what other stress that come into play, and is really learning to deal with each individual, each issue differently, and it's very difficult not to take it personally, for sure.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. You don't want people to be mad at you, but if it's the right thing, also as a leader on the team, you kind of have to make some of the tough decisions. I've learned a lot. I've developed a relationship with Urban Meyer over the course of the past few years, doing a leadership academy. And if you're going to be a good leader, you can't always be the friend first. So that's been really tough for me because some things you need to say and people are not going to like them, or they're not going to love you. They're going to talk about you. But you kind of have to learn like what you want. I mean, do you want to be a good leader? Do you want your team to succeed, or do you want everyone to like love you all the time? So that's probably.
Yeah. So I guess you have to decide, if you want to be have effective leadership or popular vote.
Yeah. So I ended up maybe choosing the people not liking me as much all the time, but I'm glad I did. I think
but you're fantastic. It's like, your leadership skills will only come through when you're challenged. That's when you know who are the leader, who the leaders are, right? So, but well done though on that aspect. So Ryan, what are your thoughts? Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got the question. Yeah. For me, I think kind of like the biggest, I don't know if it's necessarily an obstacle or something that just kind of I overcame was I was really kind of nervous going into especially first year. Everyone kind of builds it up, and everyone says first year is the hardest year and it's gonna be a big adjustment. And a lot of people are saying that aren't necessarily even athletes who have that on top of it. So I was just really nervous going into first year, just kind of going to be trying to balance tennis, which I was already obviously training, but tennis and then college courses and like a full course load. And just kind of, I was nervous about keeping like a good GPA. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be crazy. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I kind of kept a lot of that to myself, but I was really nervous just kind of going in, especially in first year. So what you quickly realize is that you have to be the best advocate to university. Sorry, was I frozen there for a bit or not?
Yeah.
So I don't know if my connection's bad. But one of the things you quickly realize when you get to university is that you have to be your own advocate, especially in your college classes where you have much bigger classes and there's not a teacher that's looking out for you. And you have to just, especially being an athlete, you have to get on top, tell them the classes you're going to be missing, if you have to get exams switched, and just different stuff like that you don't necessarily have to do as much of in high school. So that was kind of a bit of adjustment for me. And I was happy that I had a good first year, and it's kind of carried over. And also a thing that you also realize is that even though you have all these commitments and classes and training, you probably actually have more free time once you get to university, or time where you're not being supervised, or at the house where there's no one to really tell you what to do. So, I mean, you can spend it productively, and you can go get physio on a sore shoulder, and you can study, or you can also waste time pretty quickly, and those hours kind of fly by. So I think that was kind of just a big adjustment, just making sure that I'm staying on top of things, studying when I don't necessarily need to study, but it's going to help me down the road. And I always found that when I was doing well academically, or not too stressed out in the classroom, I'd play much better when I was on court, just because that kind of just distracting me, because it's something that's kind of always on your mind. So I think they definitely go hand in hand, or if academics are kind of important to you, they definitely go hand in hand, because it's tough to succeed in one without succeeding in the other, I found. So I don't know if that's necessarily a huge obstacle I overcame, but just kind of a worry I had going in that I was able to kind of get through.
Well, being that, being your first year, because everything is new,
Mm-hmm.
right? For your parents, for you. So, as an international student, or student athlete, you have to declare your major pretty early. Is it not true?
For us, no, we had till the second year, end of second year. I declared it
Okay.
in my second year, but maybe it varies by school. But for GW, we could declare. So I actually came in as undeclared, which was lucky. I didn't really know what I knew generally, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to study.
Okay. Yeah. What about Danielle? Did you have a major going in right away, or did it change throughout your 4 years?
Well, I went into Indiana, I think undecided, thinking business. And then I went to Ohio State and did strategic communications. And I really liked that. I did that right off the bat when I went there. So I kind of knew.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it's always nice when you have an idea of what you want to study.
Yeah.
Now, for our audience, right? So let's say now, I mean, I know both of you. Your tennis was up there. Your GPA was up there as a high schooler, right?
Mm-hmm.
For students who, let's say, they are, how soon would you say that they should really start focusing on get everything high if they want to go to a really good school? Because in the past, I know some people would wait till like the last year of the high school, and then they just do all this, and then they get all stressed out. How soon would you say that would just de-stress a little?
like the test taking and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I started end of my sophomore, junior year. I think junior probably is better, just because like now even more than ever, also like coaches are coming at people earlier and earlier in whatever way they can. So if you even have those test scores and you can kind of give them an idea of what they're working with. I know Northwestern was one of the schools I did talk to, and them kind of feeling out what your grades are and what your test scores are. That's really helpful for a coach. So talking to some of those schools like Dartmouth, also like some that reach out, they kind of want to, like, they have to ask your grades and they have to ask your test scores. So if you have that available to them, it's much easier to go on if you want to go that way in the recruiting, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to be prepared and have everything so you don't feel rushed. But I think sophomore, junior year for sure, just to like, so you don't have to freak out about it. And like, yeah, but I could ask my mom, but she'd know everything. But for sure, end of sophomore, I think.
Yeah, I know like Ryan was a huge help in providing sources to take that SAT practices. I know in my family. So Ryan, did I hear you correctly that you went to visit one school, or did you visit more than one school?
Yeah, I actually only visited George Washington, which was definitely not typical of kind of most recruiting the recruiting process, because you can take 5 official visits total. So I was kind of lucky in the sense that when I got there, I kind of knew right away that I wanted to. It's kind of the school I really liked, and it seemed like just a really good fit. So I didn't really feel like I was missing out on seeing other schools. I just kind of knew right away. And then I was fortunate enough for my offer to come in pretty quickly, and that kind of just freed up my senior year, grade 12 senior year, in a sense where I wasn't worried too much about like how my grades would hold up, or I could kind of just focus on tennis, and I could kind of relax a little bit. So I was lucky in that sense, but that's not necessarily the way to do it. There's definitely huge pros to visiting as many schools as you can. Obviously, when you do visit a school, you have to take time off of high school or some to visit for the weekend. But it's definitely worth it. Like, I mean, we have mainly their was it juniors or seniors coming to visit, mainly seniors, and at the beginning of the year. And so it's a really good idea to kind of get a sense of what the team is like, what the university is like, because a university could seem amazing on paper, but you get there and it's nothing like you hoped, or you don't like the team, which is a huge part of obviously the college experience. Like getting along with your teammates, it's a huge plus. It's not always possible, but if you can, if you're friends and you get along with a lot of the teammates, because you do spend a lot of time with them, you're in vans or buses or in the car with them quite a bit. So it's a major benefit if you're not just ready to get out of the van after every ride. But so it's definitely a good idea to feel out as many schools as you can and kind of talk to as many coaches as you can, because it's never bad to have more options.
Well, unless like you said, right, you go there and you're like, sometimes you just know.
Yeah.
You know, like Isabel did the same thing. She only visited that one school.
Yeah.
Right. And she wasn't even initially she wasn't even gonna go to college at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, just by chance we were at the tournament in Florida, and then we're like, oh, we couldn't go home, but but we could go through Ohio, and that's how we ended up in Ohio visiting because of weather. You know, and then we got there, and I remember her asking me, and I was just like, wow, this is, you know, it's her first time in a college environment. And then she's like, what do you think? Well, I went to UCLA, so I kind of know, you know, but really sad to say, but, you know, don't tell anyone. I didn't take it too seriously, because I was like, oh, it's LA, I want to go to LA. So there I was, but I got really lucky, got into a really good team. So I knew what it felt like when you're in a good, you know, I saw things, but ultimately, like Ryan, like you said, it would be good. Don't be so fast to jump to the first one that comes knocking on your door. So, all right. Another question. What was your best memory of college? So Danielle, would you like to go?
Sure. I have like 3. So my first year I redshirted. We beat Michigan in the final of the Big Ten tournament. That was awesome, always. And actually, I'm going to piggyback off of that. Beating Michigan at the indoor tournament was awesome too. Always is. I think.
Okay, so Danielle, hold on 1 second for the audience that does not know. When you go to Ohio State, all the M's get crossed out. Just so everyone knows, all the M's. So when Ohio State plays Michigan, it's like the match to win.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, go on.
So I think I don't know. I think Duke might be one, just because I clinched it, and it was just kind of our big moment that showed everyone that we meant business. Like, we knew it, but we just had to prove it, and that was kind of the beginning of our proving to the whole nation that year. And then kind of the national campus, that was just not very, I mean, it was awesome, the feeling after, but during it felt sick. I finished my match super early, which is great. Oh, won, got off. It was not. I was like, I wish I was still playing so I didn't have to watch and freak out, because watching is so much harder than playing. I was like pacing. You will not see me in one of the team pictures that is watching the last match on. I'm nowhere near. I'm like in the back, like pacing back and forth, like closing. I mean, like I was and I don't get like that in my own matches, but I mean, I couldn't even watch. So it was obviously the best feeling in the world to like, for all our hard work to pay off and beat the number 2 team in the country at such an amazing environment. But like, I was so nervous and but I mean, I think Duke, just cause like that was kind of like the starting point for our year. And yeah, it was just
so that explains why you're like one of the last ones to finish was the last matches. So you won't be nervous watching.
Yeah, like normal. I mean, that match was just like everything was like, because we wanted it so bad. But yeah,
right.
I mean, it's always great. Like, oh, I finished, finally closed it out, and then I was like, oh. Shori and I were looking at each other because I think I finished first, and then Shori finished, and we're like, a long time, like really, like great.
But, yeah, but what's really cool though with college matches, I think, you know, unlike your regular private or tournaments, right? So the coaches can actually talk to the players between point anytime, really. The coach will be standing right next to. I remembered, Ryan, I think, tell me how you felt the very first time when you went into that scene where the coaches are constantly talking to you. Because I remember with Isabel, I just watched Isabel and she was like, what? Oh, okay. What? So she was so not used to that. How did you feel?
Yeah, it was kind of, weird at first. You're used to kind of, like in breaks, you're used to kind of not talking and just kind of being just kind of within yourself a little bit in matches. And then you get to college and then there's someone, especially at breaks, you're talking about strategy. And, but I think especially over time, as kind of matches go on and as weeks go on, you kind of get a better sense of how to deal with that. And then the coaches also get a better sense of how to talk to you when you're on court, and you definitely, you kind of get into a bit of a rhythm with that when it comes to coaching. So it's a bit of an adjustment at first, but I like it because it's often when you're playing tennis and you kind of get tunnel vision a little bit, and you don't necessarily, when someone's watching from the outside looking in, they see things that you don't necessarily see. So it's definitely really helpful. And I've enjoyed it, but it was a bit of an adjustment at first. You don't normally have someone telling you what to do or anything like that. So yeah, it's been a bit of a change for sure. But
and also the format is a huge change because you start off with doubles.
Yeah.
Right, and it's one set on each 3 courts, one set on each court, and it's a huge difference going into singles whether you're going to come up. Going to singles with 1 point up or you're falling behind. How tough, Danielle, how tough is it, going into your singles and seeing that you're like 1 point behind already? What's the pressure?
Well, honestly, you can look at it 2 ways. Obviously, you can be like, oh, gosh, we have to win more matches. Or you can kind of be like, our team has to buckle down and everyone's going to have to really contribute instead of a few that normally do finish first and then it's done. So our team kind of actually, I don't know, we actually did well when we didn't win the doubles point. We had some injuries this year that they didn't play, so things were a little bit different. So we lost a few, and people had to step up. So you couldn't really be like, oh, we got this, it's fine. You really had to like zone in and be like, okay, this is like, not that anything is ever not serious, but you really did have to like, I don't know, take it like literally be like, you know what, I got to take care of what I'm going to do. I can't just like wait it out and see if other people win, because that's just not going to really work. You have to get everyone, it just like takes more focus, I guess. You have to kind of come out with a chip on your shoulder. And I mean, a lot of times we always noticed if a team would celebrate like they won the match after the doubles point, then we were like, okay, this is on, like, great. They think they won it. They have no idea what's coming. So, I mean, we actually handled it really well just because we kind of used it and like kept in the back of our head, and like, they think they won, like they're not. It's going to take a lot more than that to like win. So, I mean, obviously it takes a lot of pressure off, but you got to handle it the right way. You can't dwell on it. You have to forget about it. Tennis is a very short-term memory sport. So, I mean, obviously you'd love it. Everyone wants it. I wish I had it every match, but I mean, it makes people kind of get their head in it and really push through for the team.
Right. For sure. It's all about team, do or die, right? When you're in the team, that's your family right there. So Ryan, I'm going to call you out on this a little bit. So I remembered in years past when you were, when I was running the program, and
Yeah.
Ryan, you always know if Ryan stayed up a little longer than he should at night studying, because he would just roll out and slowly, take his good old time before he gets into the program. That's not the case anymore when you go to college.
No.
How are you
We
dealing with that?
Well, so this semester actually, especially was tough in that sense. So, like when I was as a junior, we were doing the morning practices, like the 6:30 to 8 practices before school. So those were tough. I don't know if I was definitely lucky, but it was also kind of a curse at the same time because I lived very close to the club by the ORC, so I could literally roll out of bed and get to practice in a couple minutes. So sometimes I was still sleeping. I'm not sure how I drove there successfully, but when you get to university this semester in university, we had 6 a.m. lift and conditioning, 6 to 7 a.m. and then practice right after. So one of the things is that sleep was so important. The latest I would go to sleep was about 10:30, if that, and I noticed it the next day.
Wow.
I mean, there's obviously times when you have to stay up late if there's an assignment, but it does kind of get up on you. And I found sleep was just super important this semester. But on top of that, you can't have low energy at practice. We were kind of lucky where we had a lift before most of our practices, so you once you get through a warm up, you're lifting and you can work into it. And by the time you actually get tennis practice, you're pretty awake. But still, during lifts, you have to be pretty energized and pretty focused. So. Yeah, no, that just didn't fly, just kind of being asleep at lifts or anything like that. I hope I wasn't asleep too much at practices back as a junior. I don't, maybe you'll remember that more than me, but no, definitely. And we'd call each other out if people didn't, if people didn't sleep or if people weren't engaged, we'd call each other out because it's only going to help each other. And everyone kind of agreed that no one's going to get offended. No one's going to get mad if someone calls each other out, and it's just a good culture to have. So we all kind of held each other accountable, but you have to bring energy to the practices because one person has low energy can kind of bring down a whole group, and it just can be like a waterfall effect or a snowball effect. So we just kind of all had to get going right from the start.
That is so true, though, because I think sometimes, players, when they get a scholarship, they think they have, they're home free, and that they go to college and it's going to be a party time. And it's really not like that, at least not what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the serious school, you got your scholarship, you're going on the team, it's your job. It's a job in itself. And then you have the academic side that's going to support, and you have to somehow manage your time where you're still functional.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, that's the biggest adjustment for anybody. And that was also, there's also one thing I've seen, but right now with the pandemic, there's no tournament, so you can't really tell. In the past, I was really surprised, and I was sad to see where a player would sign with a college and then they won't play tournaments anymore. To me, it's like, what, that makes no sense, because you got the scholarship because of your performance, because of your level of play. Why not? Obviously right now nobody's playing anything other than we just feel so lucky to be training again for what it's worth. Next question from Udaya. So do the offered courses differ between whether you are in Division 1, 2, and 3?
I think they differ just every school in general. I mean, obviously we go to D1 schools, but I mean, each school also does have like a specialty. So some liberal arts schools would be D3 or D2. You might want to go there because you're interested in certain things. So that's all I have. I can't really speak on it a lot, but I just think every school from Indiana to Ohio State even was so different. So you don't really know what you're getting until you experience it. And that's why you want to go to some classes on your visits just to see kind of how it is. But yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, every school, and I've even talked to Isabel a bit about this, just kind of has different gen ed requirements. So some schools you have to take language classes. Some schools you have to take like an arts, like an acting class semester, which was that was an experience. But yeah, every school has different requirements that you take, and those are going to change. Whether you're in Division 1, 2, and 3, they're all going to be slightly different. And then, but for a lot of like different majors, it's gonna generally be kind of the same topics of classes. Maybe the titles of the classes are gonna be a little bit different, but I would say they're pretty similar across like Division 1, 2, and 3 in terms of the type of education you're gonna get. A lot of Division 3 schools are very strong academically, and so there's positives to each. Obviously, wanted to do the Division 1 route, but yeah, it's going to vary by school.
Now, when you every year before, well, especially let's talk about the first year, right? When you get to school, and you meet with, when do you meet with your academic counselor? During your official visit, or during when your first year, when you like check in your dorm?
Yeah, I think you meet with them a lot.
Yeah.
You meet with them in the official visits, and then you kind of, I mean, for me though, and I think a lot of people might not go early and train there. So like I was able to be on campus and kind of meet with Mr. Macco, who is our academic advisor, and kind of set up classes and everything. So a lot of the times you do that during orientation also. So where you had to be on campus. So.
And what about now, Ryan? Do you have different academic counselors? Do you have several counselors that help you along the way, or you just have one?
So we have one. She's her name is Ellen. Not really relevant, but she's a lady. She's like responsible for our team and the women's tennis team, I believe, and maybe one other team. But so we, especially in your freshman year, you're talking to them all the time. Different questions you have, maybe about registering for courses or switching out of courses. And we had weekly or maybe twice a week meetings, just keeping up with classes, making sure that you're doing well in them. And then we also have tutors on top of that for any class that you take. So right from the start, they're sending out forms so you can request tutors for classes that you're taking, which is a huge helps, because maybe if you fall behind in a class, it's definitely helpful to just kind of have someone teaching something to you that you maybe missed because of a tournament or something like that. So most schools do have tutors for the athletes, and it is a huge benefit, just to be able to keep up with classes, because they do go pretty fast and they come. And when midterm season happens, there's a lot of stuff you have to know for one small amount of time. So tutors are definitely a big help. But then for the most part, we have kind of one main academic advisor for our team.
Okay, so we have time for one last question. There are a lot of questions here. I have to pick one about housing. A student athlete, she still hasn't gotten anything regarding housing. Is that a problem at this point? And this is a freshman going in.
Mm-hmm. So we have 2 freshmen coming in this semester, and they also don't know at this point their housing. I mean, they applied a little while ago. I forget exactly when I found out, but I know they haven't gotten their decision at this point yet. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. Universities are also really struggling to kind of figure out the situation going with COVID-19 and just everything going on right now. So they're also scrambling on their end. So, and there's probably so many different policies that they're going to have to implement with housing, because people are really close together in housing, and there's a ton of people in a building. So there'll probably be almost a bigger delay this year compared to other years, just because of the amount of changes that they're going to have to implement. So at this point, don't be worried, because I know guys and 2 guys coming in they don't have their assignments yet either. So I wouldn't be worried at this point.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up with one last suggestion from you to the audience. What is the one thing, not the most important thing, because I feel like when you're freshman going in, everything is important. What's the one thing, reflecting on your college years, that you would strongly suggest to the audience, whether to a parent or to a player?
Well, I mean, there are so many things I could suggest, but I guess like when you go into college, know what you want to get out of it, because there's a lot of things you can get out of college. You don't have to be the same as everyone else. You can go there for school, you can go there for relationships, you can go there for anything. But just kind of know what you want to get out of it. Parents obviously have that discussion with your kids, because it is important, because if you're on different pages, that could be difficult. And obviously you have to keep in communication, and that might be also difficult depending on where people go. But just like kind of know what you want to get out of it, and then you have to figure out how to do that. So if it's like for tennis, for example, like my goals were tennis kind of centered. I wanted to reach my fullest potential. I mean, hopefully I did, but you got to go in early. You have to take care of your body. You have to work as hard as you can. And you really just like, if you're willing to do everything possible to get better, then do it. But like, if that's not your number one goal, then figure it out. Cause you do need to know when you go to college, like what you're really focused on and what you're really wanting to do. Because if you don't really know, then that's going to kind of make it more difficult. And then, yeah. And then parents, I mean, obviously, my parents, well, JJ and I have probably driven them crazy, but like be supportive and talk to your kids as much as possible. Keep those relationships, because it goes by really quickly, and try to see them as much as possible. I don't know, enjoy it. It goes by so fast, unfortunately, and it'll be the best time ever. So
That was awesome. So Ryan.
Yeah, no, that was really good in terms of kind of having a goal before you get to college, even just as to kind of what you want to get accomplished. Because I know so many people that kind of let their freshman year get away from them, especially. And sometimes it's not too late, but it makes it just in terms of keeping a GPA or just different things. It can get away from you, and you don't want to have to really kind of claw back when you're in your second, third, and fourth year. But on top of that, in terms of kind of getting ready for college, I would say just kind of get on it early, and then also just really develop strong relationships, and always be really nice to all your coaches and people that you might not necessarily think will have a big effect on your life down in the future. Because it's been so helpful for me kind of developing like strong relationships with coaches that kind of help me even like in the recruiting process, that maybe I wouldn't be where I was today or at the same university I was today if I didn't have those strong relationships and they weren't willing to vouch for me, which is super helpful. Because especially as a Canadian or international student, there's not the same exposure you get as compared to an American high school student, where there's a bunch of different like sectional or regionals, and there's your tournaments where tons of like coaches plan their schedule around them to come watch. And there's a couple of those tournaments with nationals in Canada, but other than that, there's not as much. So sometimes it is important to have a coach vouch for you if they know another coach, or and just different stuff like that. So I just think it's really important to kind of keep those relationships strong and always be polite to everyone as much as you can, because you never know when a connection like that can help you in the recruiting process or down the road. So that's just kind of one thing that I've been happy I was able to kind of do right from the start, and that kind of helped me out for sure.
Well, I tell you that the two things that come to mind, right? One for each of you. If I have to identify for each of you, Ryan, for me would be a team player. I mean, I've known you for 5 years, and from day one till now even, right? Team player, I can always count on Ryan. And that's what coaches are looking for, not just, all those winners up there, but a team player, because you go through hell. Yeah. Almost every day of different things, right? And Danielle, for me, when I look at you, it's all about effort. I mean, you work so hard. Work ethics, that's another thing that coaches look for. It's not the best player, although you're darn good. You did awesome. But that you can tell when somebody, they want 100 contribution from each individual bringing on the team. And unfortunately, our time is up, but thank you thank you so much.
Well, thank
I
you.
hope that parents, have a lot to take away from, and the players who are heading off to college. This has been so insightful from a 2020 graduate and from a third year, student still going back to school. But before you all leave me, I have to introduce our next guest. So, so our next guest is, whoops, hold on a second. It is not allowing me to do our next guest. So right there, can you all see that? I hope so.
I can see that. Yeah, seems like a
Yeah.
decent player.
So, I already gave away the clue. So that's no fun anymore. I blew my own. Anyway, so here we go. She was born, she has 3 citizenships, right? So she was born in Canada, born to American father and a French mother, won over 500 singles on the tour, had 18 WTA singles titles, 10 WTA doubles titles, 6 Grand Slam finals, and played in 3 Olympics, and was part of the French team when they won the 97 and the 2003 Fed Cup, won the 1995 Australian Singles Open and 2000 French Open. And I am so excited to have Mary Pierce coming to join us on Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. More information will be sent out, but this is a glimpse onto our next guest. But Ryan, Danielle, it's been awesome having you both, and I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot of you both soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
And stay safe.
Yeah,
All
thank you.
right, take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And everybody, and that concludes our session today. I hope you had a great takeaway, and I shall see you on Wednesday, and save the date for Mary Pierce.